The unknown.
That's it.
Oh, it sounds like a scary topic.
I hope it doesn't make people too scared.
I hope it does, because it'll wake them up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get this party started. Good afternoon and welcome to the final set of sessions for AusCERT2022. My name is Valdemar Jacobson. I'm your chair for the afternoon. Just remember, submit your questions using the app so that we can actually ask them at the end of the session if there's time. For this second last session in the breakout streams, we've got Ryan Hosken from Carbonite Webroot talking about the age of cyber resilience, preparing your business for the unknown. So I hope you can all stay awake and not get too scared.
Thank you very much. Ron? Hello, testing, cool, I'm live. Good afternoon, everyone. How are we all? Good. Hopefully lots of energy even after your lunch. There was a bit of rain coming down before. It was, who knew what was going to happen. A little bit about myself. My name is Ryan Hosken. I'm a Senior Solutions Consultant for OpenText Security Solutions. And today I'm just going to be talking to you guys a little bit about preparing your business for the unknown in the age of cyber resilience. So before I sort of go through a little bit about preparing your business for the unknown, I just want to talk to you a little bit about how this is similar to our personal lives. In our personal lives, we prepare ourselves for the unknown every day. We have locks on our doors, we have security systems, alarm systems, cameras, guard dogs, cats, if you're a cat person, it's a cat or dog. And also we have a fence. And these are our protective, proactive solutions that we use to prepare ourselves for the unknown. Now, if something does go wrong, we've got insurance on our house, right? We want to return back to where we were, we have insurance. Translating this from personal life to protecting your business is the same sort of thing. So we're doing it in our personal lives, we also want to do it in our business. So I guess, why cyber resilience? So cyber resilience, the reason why this is important is data is the currency of all business. So when bad threat actors are looking to get inside your network, looking to breach into servers, networks, whatever it may be, they're not going to go in there and say, oh, cool, and boast about, oh, look how good I am, I've broken into someone's server. No, they're obviously after something. They're after data, right? And losing access to this data is a big problem for businesses because it can impact them in many different ways. So first of all, it can shut down operations. So if your business trades a lot, has an online e-commerce platform, for example, then all of a sudden, if you're losing access to be able to take payments, your business is impacted by that. If it is a ransomware breach or data exfiltration, all of a sudden, if that data is leaked out and publicly available for everybody, then you have a compliance problem, so a breach. So compliance authority is going to come down hard with a hammer and say, your data's been leaked, even though it wasn't your fault, you obviously have to pay for it. And probably the most important one is bringing about a loss of reputation. Reputation for businesses is very important because, as you all well know, to build a reputation for a business, it can take lots of years, lots of hard work to establish yourself in that industry, but it only takes a short amount of time to undo all that hard work, and a cyber breach can do that. So the reason why cyber resilience, we want to be able to empower businesses to be able to keep moving no matter what. You take a punch on the chin, you don't fall down, you keep going. So we want to be able to, no matter what the global situation is, what the threat landscape is, we want to be able to empower you to keep moving no matter what. And I guess the question is, why now? Well, I mean, besides that, we're at AusCERT and we've been talking about this for the last week or so, why now? So if we look at a timeline in terms of crippling cyber attacks, that they are on the rise. We look at 20, 30 years ago, Trojans infected machines via floppy disks. As time goes on, that's obviously changed into, if we look at 2013, CryptoLocker, many of you might be aware of this, CryptoLocker payloads propagated by email. So this is where we first started to see a resurgence of email payload delivery for both phishing and malware propagation. As we move a little bit further along, we look at 2015, 2016, we're looking at, probably some of these names might be familiar to you, WannaCry, you probably see that everywhere. This is ransomware that effectively took the world by storm, and the way that they did this was to prey on patches. So vendors releasing patch notes to say, hey, look, we've found a breach here, please patch it immediately. Now, I don't need to tell you that patch notes and releases are all well and good because they alert you of some vulnerabilities in your environment. But also someone with bad intentions is also going to have access to that, so they can think, oh cool, there's an exploit here, I can take advantage of that. So that's what we saw across the globe. As we move forward a little bit further, we see a greater emphasis on phishing, spear phishing attacks. We look at 2017, 2018, and we look at things like Fin6 and TrickBot. So spear phishing, and those tools, those ransomware tools, were more to exfiltrate financial information from institutions. And then we look at the likes of DarkSide, Reveal, DDoS attacks, supply chains. You all obviously aware of the Kaseya attack, most recently in the last year. Also, DarkSide was the ransomware threat actor group responsible for the Colonial Pipeline attack on the eastern side of the US that crippled the supply chain of fuel. So as you can see, as we go and move from 1989, what I've got here on the slide, all the way up until now, the complexity is increasing and also the risk associated with that. So before I sort of talk a little bit about what we're seeing and how you guys can protect your businesses for the unknown, I want to sort of talk a little bit about our BrightCloud Threat Intelligence platform. So at OpenText Security Solutions, our BrightCloud Threat Intelligence platform scans about 500 billion objects per day. And this is the threat intelligence platform that we utilize to power all of our products. We also have a lot of OEM partner relationships. So the main thing I want to sort of get across here is, because there's lots of plugins into this, within 5 minutes something's happened. Basically everyone on the globe knows about it. Some of our OEM partners quite strong, likes of Cisco, Aruba Networks, all have sort of plugins into our BrightCloud Threat Intelligence platform. So the benefit of our BrightCloud Intelligence platform is not only to make make technology stronger, but also provide reports to business owners and consumers. So every year we publish a BrightCloud threat report that effectively summarises what's happened in the last 12 months. The latest one is available now in case you want to download it. I think it's also available on the Events Air app as well if you want to take advantage of that. So in terms of a summary, I'll just talk about what we've seen through 2021 in terms of reflections. We've seen an increase in IoT security attacks. Now, if we think about IoT, it's great. Like, we have, our fridges are connected, fridges, dishwashers, basically anything, with an IP address can be. And whilst that's all well and good, when we talk about IoT, it's more for convenience features. It's not always with security in mind. So we have seen a bit of targeted attacks towards IoT devices. We have also seen penetration testing tools on the black market. So 2 examples, Cobalt Strike and Metasploit. These tools effectively try and scrape admin credentials before pivoting to things like domain controllers and causing havoc for everybody. So we've seen whilst these tools have a tight license model, it's a bit of a problem because we're still seeing this appear on the black market for people to take advantage of. Extortion techniques as well are growing in number, in method. So, if we look back at it on, I guess, my timeline on the other slide, it used to be you pay if your machine gets encrypted, you can't use it, all of a sudden you pay $150 fine to a bank somewhere, God knows where it is. Now those extortion techniques are growing in number and method because if your network devices are ransomed, it's unsure whether you'll actually get that back if you pay it or not. So there's also, when we talk about they're growing in number and method, they're also becoming a lot more severe. So we talk about, we see the likes of double extortion tactics where, we'll pay the ransom to unlock your data, otherwise we'll leak your information all over the web for everyone to see, and then obviously compliance fines attract that sort of attention. Also, it can get quite scary. We haven't seen this very, very regularly, but going after personal information, home addresses, kids' school addresses, things like that. So it can get quite scary. You might think it might just be, it's just a ransomware attack, data's locked, I'll pay it, get it back, but it can become a lot more severe than that. Also, a concept called pump and dump scams, which when I first saw this, I thought, what is that? But pump and dump scams, we have seen this in regards to when somebody decides to try and artificially inflate the price of, we've seen it in cryptocurrency a lot. So people spread word, I've just bought this cryptocurrency, it's really good, you guys should buy into it, but no one else knows that the majority shareholders and people that own the majority of those shares are obviously doing this for bad reasons. So what happens? Everyone buys into it, the price goes up, the majority, 1 or 2 people that started the scam originally sell off all their shares, price goes crashing, they make a fortune, everyone else is left with nothing. So pump and dump scams generally prey on I guess events that happen locally, whether it be, I know we've got an election coming up as well, so something along those lines, so that they'll try and trigger an emotional response from somebody. We've also seen an increase in mobile vulnerabilities, which is probably not surprising. I've been in a lot of talks over the last couple of days, and yeah, increase in mobile vulnerabilities is something that we are seeing a lot more of, both on iOS and Android. The barrier to entry is also getting lower. So there's a concept that we published in last year's threat report called ransomware as a service. So effectively, you don't need to be able to code to do this. You just source it out, take access to it, and utilize the tool for your own methods. So it's as a service model, making it accessible for everyone, which is not good for us, right? It's a problem. And lastly, just on this slide here, in terms of the reflections of what we're seeing an increase in rising ransomware costs. So the ransomware costs that we've seen over a period of time, if we look at 2018, it's about $3,000 thereabouts was the average payment for a ransomware attack. As we go up, 2019, 2020, that pink line goes up significantly. I mean, it's gone from what, $3,000 up until like over $350,000 now. So the average ransomware cost is always going to keep increasing. Some of this data, obviously because we take this globally, it partially, it factors in not only small, medium business, but also big enterprises that suffer and get hit with like large ransomware, like what ransomware bills, big ransomware sums. So some of the biggest ones that we did see in 2021, we all know, I mentioned the Kaseya VSA ransomware attack before, $70 million ransom affecting up to 1,500 small, medium businesses. Very big problem. I talked about reputation at the start. That's obviously a big, I don't need to tell you that's a big reputation hit. The same group, Revil, claimed they'd actually stolen blueprints from a company called Quanta, who actually manufactures a lot of Apple's chips and hardware. So interestingly enough, the ransom was demanded $50 million from Apple as opposed to Quanta, because they know Apple's got the money. It's like a drop in the bucket for them. They'll probably pay it. As a disclaimer, I don't know whether these 2 initial ransoms were ever paid. We're not 100% sure. The last one, however, CNA Financial was paid $40 million, and they tried for 2 weeks to try and recover their data back to where it was. Couldn't do it, so they paid the ransom and got access to their systems and data. Now they've lost 2 weeks of business operations by doing that. So it's sort of a trade-off. Do I try and recover it, lose time, run into a dead end, or do I just pay it and get access to my data? Or you might not even get access to the data back at all. So there is some hope. Obviously, there's a lot of coordinated efforts between different countries, different regions to try and bring these threat actors down, and it's something that will continue to happen as time goes on. I also want to take a look at phishing volume. So phishing volume, if you have a look on the screen now, you can see we all know phishing is increasing. So phishing is a constant problem. It's a low operational overhead for someone to do phishing, just bombard a couple of emails out. Doesn't require a lot of operational costs to do that. The start of the phishing season is always relatively quiet. Between January and April, a little bit quiet, starts to ramp up. May is generally the biggest one. We attribute that to the likes of people, especially consumers, filing tax returns around tax time. We sort of see a bit of a spike in that, and a bit of a follow-on in June and July. Then we encounter the holiday period. I guess hacker holidays is a term you can call it, before it starts increasing, ramping up towards November. So once the holiday season's about to kick in, we see a huge increase in phishing emails. So it's a bit of a seasonal up and down, peaks and troughs, but the general increase in how many phishing attacks taking place is quite high. I want to just highlight here just some of the top most impersonated companies that we see, that we saw over the last couple of years. Now you'll see most of the sort of your bigger companies, Apple, Facebook, YouTube, Microsoft, Google, all there. One of the outliers I want to sort of highlight is eBay. top of the list in 2020, doesn't even crack the top 10 in 2021. You might think, why is that? It's a bit strange. Well, as we know, we've all gone through pandemic. I don't need to tell you guys that. You're all aware of that. But obviously, supply chain was disrupted. People couldn't get access to things, so they all turned to eBay to procure the goods that they needed. Hence, eBay became one of the top, or the top phishing impersonated company that we saw in the year of 2020. One thing I'll probably just note here is in the 2021 list, both YouTube and Google both appear. So YouTube actually soars quite high to number 3. That could be attributed to the use of Google accounts being used to YouTube now. So I guess we could probably take that with a grain of salt. It might be combining both there. But regardless, Google is still, both YouTube and Google crack our top 10. One thing that actually is quite concerning when it comes to phishing is the use of HTTP and HTTPS. Now, I'm guessing I can put my hand up and honestly say I've been on a website, I've seen a padlock, and I think, oh, cool, I'm on a HTTPS site. It's secure. I can do whatever I want here. I'm on a secure site. No one's going to take advantage of me. Well, the data that we've collected over the last year proves quite different. We do see HTTPS sites being used for phishing because threat actors are registering domains, obtaining certificates, and utilising HTTPS secured websites to be able to provide phishing. So I just want to, it's more of just a highlight because once the thought methodology was if it's a secure site, with a padlock in the top left browser, I'm secure. Not the case here. However, I will say in terms of a little bit of positive news, this is starting to decrease. So there's a lot more tight evaluation on providing certificates, registering domains. There's a lot more sort of thorough verification process that goes into that. So this should hopefully decrease over time. We're sort of bringing it to your attention that is a bit of a problem at the moment. So the last bit of, I guess, bad news to highlight, I guess, in terms of what we're seeing. What we're seeing is, I just want to touch on a little bit of a journey to the breach. So journey to breach is going to always start with planning. Now, planning is something, this is obviously from the threat actor's point of view. They plan for that. So they try and get an idea on what victims they're going to go after, how much money do they have, we'll research and study these, do they have any exposed ports that I can brute force my way into, things like that. So you might be thinking, okay, how do I protect against this? Like they're planning to infiltrate me, how do I protect against that? The easiest solution is you sort of can, you sort of can't. It's more just taking a bit of an idea, taking a broad look at your ecosystem, your networks, and try and figure out where your vulnerabilities lie to reduce your risk of being chosen as a potential target. After planning, we get the intrusion that takes place. So some sort of attack vector is chosen. Spear phishing is usually the most easiest way to do that. It's an easy way to get malware payloads and basically fake login pages to the hands of lots of different users. One thing I sort of didn't touch on is actually insiders. So we've heard a lot of sort of talks recently about always assume a breach. There could be an insider in there. So it could be an inside attack. Could be passive exploits, could be 0-day, the likes of which hard to tell straight away. So after the intrusion takes place, we enter a phase called enumeration. So once a threat actor gets access to a network or a system, they just sit there. They try and live off the land. They say, who am I? Where can I go? What's the path of least resistance for me to actually get to where I need to go and essentially do what I need to do? Now, there are a lot of tools out there, detection tools that will alert on these type of activities because the way that a threat actor will determine where they are and what access they have is by running a set of tools to be able to figure out that. And that's what a lot of detection response products alert on. So after they enumerate, if they're not caught, and you can see as this goes on, it gets worse and worse to try and remediate this problem, is lateral spread. So it's going to establish a foothold, establish a presence. It's going to kill off any sort of security software that you've already got. It's going to try and do whatever it can to establish a foothold and not be able to be removed very easily at all. And then that's after that, once they've got that foothold, they get noisy. So they essentially do what they came here to do. Steal intellectual property, distribute malware, disrupt basically anything they can, destroy networks. So in terms of a breach, this is generally what we see. What does it look like from a planning phase all the way to execution? This could take, as an arbitrary number, it could take a couple of days, could take a couple of weeks. A lot of tools out there, I think Lemon Duck is one good example that it basically establishes and hijacks CPU and RAM usage for crypto mining purposes. So they might stay there for 6 months, 10 months or so, just sitting there generating small amounts of income. So the thing is, you probably might all be asking is, what can I do now? What can I do to protect myself against this? And there are a couple of things you can do. I'd just like to highlight, we are partnered with IDC to establish a 6-step cyber resilience framework, 6 individual steps on there that all sort of interlock. Now, if you want to have a look at this, there is a QR code there. I think it's also in the Events Era app as well if you want to take a look at that. But essentially, the 6th step, first of all, is identify. So this ties back into the slide that I had about planning before. So you don't know what you don't know. You have to take a look. You have to figure out what your vulnerabilities are and do a bit of an audit, I guess, like an audit, bit of an overview. The next part is step is protect. So you want to protect your users. You want to protect their endpoints any way you can and establish a backup system. So like I talked about at the start, with preparing your personal lives for the unknown, you've got insurance for your house. You want a data protection system, backup recovery tool for that. The third point here is around detection. So what we're talking about here is more sophisticated threats. So not just malware or signature-based attack files knocking on your door, trying to get in. It's more around those sophisticated threats, polymorphic malware, for example, things that change shape and migrate and change into different types of malware as they go along. So you say a leopard can't change its spots, these ones typically can. So after we look at tools that can detect, we also look at response tools. So it's all well and good to detect something, but I found something, I've detected it, now I sort of clean my hands and walk away. Not quite, we need something to respond. So there's a lot of solutions out there, EDR, XDR, MDR, ADR, an alphabet soup of different response tools. Basically you need something to be able to respond to that. The last point is recover. So if part of this, a hypothetical breach takes place, you need the tool sets to be able to recover back to where you were. Get back, get operational, establish cyber resilience, and keep going. And then prepare yourself for what may come next, if and when. And the last point here, number 6. So number 6 here, I've got educate. Now, I wasn't sure, I kind of half agreed with putting it at number 6, maybe number 1, because education is extremely important. We're seeing a huge demand for things like security awareness training tools now, educating those users on the front line, just to make sure we're reducing the chance of infections and malicious payloads coming through to your email accounts. So you can put this as number 1 or 6, but the point here is trying to establish a culture within your business to become cyber aware. Know what's out there, know what's going on, know what the latest trends are, and if a breach does occur and you recover from it, do a bit of a brainstorming session, talk about it, and try and figure out what's gone wrong and how you can better prepare yourself in the future. If you take one of these steps, maybe the protect angle, maybe the detect, respond, you take 1 or 2 or a couple of these, that's all well and good, but the power behind this is, and you've probably heard this from many different types of people, multi-layered defense. Interlocking steps, multi-layered defense, all the way from identification to response and education, and creating that cyber-aware culture. So in terms of what you can do, what we provide, I'm obviously not here to give you like a sales pitch by any means, but what's a good thing to do is try to get a bit of an idea on where your tool sets that you're already using slot in and go through this framework. So if you've got tools, if you take the 6 steps that both us and IDC have put together, and you think, are there any vulnerabilities in my network across any of these? This is a good sort of nice measuring stick to figure out and judge your cyber resilience. So in terms of takeaways, I know there's probably been quite a lot of content I've gone through here, but I'll leave you with a couple of takeaway points that I've mentioned. As I mentioned at the start, it's an unknown world out there. We don't know what's going on. There's even stuff that threat intelligence platforms don't know about. 0-day type of things. They're probably even something coming down the line in 2 or 3 months, 6 months' time that we don't know about, nobody knows about, and no trends are going to detect that. So take what you're learning from your personal lives in protecting yourself from the unknown, transition that to business, and interlock some steps to protect your business. So the second sort of ties into the first point. The time to implement cyber resilience is now. As I mentioned before, you can buy multiple different security tool sets to put in front of it, and maybe the only thing I could suggest would be to start sort of looking at it, evaluating it now, whether you've just started looking at it, whether you've got a full suite of products, multi-layered protection to do that. Very good, but I would, if you haven't, I'd start at least sort of looking into it now to protect your businesses. As we saw in the first couple of slides, threats are growing. They're becoming a lot more malignant. They're becoming a lot more frequent. For example, like the ransomware payouts that we're seeing. The average ransomware cost is skyrocketing, and it's probably even going to keep going up and up, especially when you couple inflation as part of that. Probably the most important one, education and self-responsibility. So I talked about a lot of businesses are looking at training their users, providing training, phishing simulators, preparing them, even though it's not a real life event, just preparing them to get a bit of an idea on what's going to happen, what's coming. And the last one I want to touch on is, as I mentioned, multi-layered strategy is very important. Not one layer is going to protect you. Try to look at patching, or having a look at all your vulnerabilities, looking at the different layers, and establishing a cyber resilience multi-layered strategy for the future. Really appreciate you guys listening to my talk today. If you have any questions, feel free to visit us at booth G8. You can also win a prize. We've also got some merch. We're running a stock take sale, 100% off till the end of the day, so come and grab what you want. And thanks very much, guys. Appreciate your time.
So just a couple of questions here from the audience. The first one we've got here is, do you have any data on phishing campaigns using newly stood up secure HTTPS domains versus using a compromised valid domain? So compromised valid sites makes detection harder for both email and web filters, obviously.
Long story short, I don't have any data on that, unfortunately. It's certainly something I can have a look at, so if I can find something from our threat intelligence team to be able to provide. But off the top of my head, I don't, unfortunately, sorry.
I'd expect that it'd probably be very, very dependent on what other capabilities you've got in place, whether you've got new domain detection, things like that.
Correct,
So,
yeah, 100%.
And also what your threat intelligence feeds are actually giving you in terms of, not just that, but other similar domains and similar registrar information and the same people doing the registration.
Yeah, it's certainly a good question.
And the other one's possibly the most pertinent of the day, but I think it might have been more valid for Dave Lewis's talk. How did you train your cat to be a physical security controller? See, I think this is better for Loki, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess, I'm personally a dog person. I honestly don't know how you'd train a cat to be a security cat. I mean, I personally have a golden retriever. If someone tries to get through the door and try and get in, the golden retriever is just going to go happily with them anyway and go for a walk. So it's not really a guard dog by any means.
So on that note, I'd like to thank Ryan on behalf of the conference, and we can have a quick early break before the next session.
No worries. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
So the next session in this room will start in 15 minutes, and it'll be Mandy Scott from Fastly, talking about, the efficiency, introducing the WAF efficiency framework and talking about true or false positives.
Thanks very much. Please.